Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Is it going to be in English or in Portuguese? English, okay. So real good morning, everybody. Well, I can't not even say in words how happy we are to be back at TSS. This house is, it's really an oasis, a spiritual oasis for Joe and I. We miss this house in so many levels that the words would never be enough to express our joy to be back here. And today, this joy is even bigger because we have two special people with us. We have Charles and we have Jean-Paul, who is sitting back there. Charles and Jean-Paul, Charles is from France. He came from France. And Jean-Paul came from Belgium. And I'll be reading a little bit of the bio of the two of them. And they came to Canada through the Canadian Spirits Council, which TSS is a part of it. And they already been in Montreal, in Quebec City, and this is their last stop before. And they leave, they go back to Europe as soon as they leave here. So I don't want to take a lot of time because he will only have 45 minutes of it's going to be a short lecture because they need to get the plane to go back to, otherwise they will miss because they're flying to Montreal and then back to Europe. So it's going to be a short time here with us. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit about the two of them. Charles Kempf, he's French, he's 50 years old, and he has one son. He's younger than me, people. He's an engineer of the, I'm not even going to attempt to say that in French. He's an engineer of the National School Superior of Mines of Paris. It's wrong, completely wrong, but it's, and he's been in the Spiritist movement since 1986. He works with the French and International Spirits movement since 1992. He's leading this, the Spirit Center Léon Denis in Cannes, France, since 1997. And he was the organization on the 4th World Spirits Congress in Paris in 2004, which was a huge mark to the Spirits movement. He's a member of the Executive Committee of the International Spirits Council since 2004, and a member of the French-speaking Spirits Movement Coordinated Entity. He is now the General Secretary of the International Spirits Council since 2012, and he's responsible for the ISC coordination in Europe. He's participating to the writing committee or the Revue Spirit. Okay, in French. Jean-Paul, our friend, he's the president of the, oh my God, it's all in French. He's the president of the Spiritist movement Francophonic. He's, yeah. Oh, there you go. Please do read. And, you know, we are so honored to have both of you here with us. We are very, very happy. And we know that nothing happens for no reason. And the reason that they are here is to bring this Canadian movement, spirits movement together. Because we can't be separated from each other. We have to be stronger, and we really do have to work our differences because this is not about us, this is about him. So without any other saying, I would love to ask Jean-Paul for our initial prayer.
In French?
In French. because the spirit has no language, right? I'm sure you all gonna understand. So please, Jean-Paul. And our speaker today is going to be Charles. Thank you so much.
Nous allons tous ensemble faire le calme dans nos pensées et nous unir mentalement vers notre Père commun. Nous savons que nous avons tous nos qualités, tous nos défauts. Et nous savons surtout que nous poursuivons tous le même but, la même direction, la même destinée. Si parfois les chemins sont différents, nous savons qu'au bout du compte, notre Père nous aime tous, car il nous a créés par amour et pour aimer. Nous avons des difficultés, des changements profonds à faire en nous-mêmes, des épreuves parfois. C'est pour cela que nous sommes ici-bas. Mais si l'amour de Jésus est plus fort que tout, si l'amour résonne au fond de notre cœur, nous comprendrons que nous devons tous nous aimer les uns les autres, quelles que soient nos différences, car un jour nous serons appelés à participer ensemble à cette création infinie et poursuivre la tâche de ceux qui l'ont commencé bien avant nous et qui nous guident depuis très longtemps et qui comptent sur notre unité et notre travail en commun pour arriver à notre destinée, qui est l'amour sans fin. Merci soit-il.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, for the introductions and Jean-Paul for the prayer. You talked about honor. I think the honor is ours to be received so warmly by all of you, and also for this opportunity that you give us to try to transmit to you some of these basic principles of these Spiritist teachings, which have been compiled by Allan Kardec in the last century, or last but one century. And today I will focus a little bit more on his books, the main books, which are 5, as you will see. A few words about International Spiritist Council. In the world there are some Spiritist groups like the TSS. Generally they join together with other groups in the same country to make a national federation, which is the Canadian Spiritist Council. And this national federation joined together in 1992 to create the International Spiritist Council, which was initially with 9 country members, and today 24 country members, which are the national federation of 24 countries. And we have contact with Spiritist groups where there is not yet a federation in other 10 or 15 countries throughout the world. Our aim is basically to help and to serve the movement. Spiritist organization is not vertical, hierarchically, where the top is dictating what to do to the bottom. It's more horizontal. Or in other words, the more we are climbing in the Spiritist hierarchy, the more we have the duty to serve and to help. And this is according to the free will, which is a basic principle of the Spiritist teaching that we need, of course, if we want to be credible, to apply on ourselves, isn't it? So let's jump to the Allan Kardec's book. So who was Allan Kardec first? His true name is Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail. So he's born in Lyon, October 3rd, 1804. You can see this monument. It's a menhir, so it's from a druidic symbol of birth. And This is today installed in Lyon, more or less at the place where he's born. We inaugurated this monument in 2005, so at the 200th anniversary of his birth, with the help and authorization of the city of Lyon, which is now promoting as well the image of Allan Kardec, who became very famous, in particularly out of France, and so we managed to do that. In reality, he's only born in Lyon. He never lived in Lyon because his father and mother were living in another city in France, which is called Bourg-en-Bresse. So it's more or less midway between Lyon and Geneva, for the one who knows. And there is basically where he grew. So he grew in Bourg-en-Bresse. His father disappeared when he was 3 years old. So this is also something which is not so known, than we found out in documents that we found recently in historical researches, through internet and through other sources. And from Bourg-en-Bresse, he was sent by his mother and his grandmother to the school of Pestalozzi in Yverdon, Switzerland. So Heinrich Pestalozzi is one of the most famous educators, which is still today known and used as a reference in the education. He had some very good principles for pushing the young people to observe themselves, to make their own deductions about the natural laws in order to facilitate their memorizing and assimilation of these natural laws. He inspired himself from Rousseau, and even today he's known. And the other big advantage of that is it was in Yverdon, Switzerland, and that school was really gathering students from everywhere in Europe, so came from France, from Spain, Italy, Russia, whatever. So as a very young child, he was already in contact with a lot of different cultures, religions, languages, and so on. And this gave him a huge cultural awareness, which helped him a lot later on when he wrote the Spiritist books. I will enter a little bit more in detail. So he left Yverdon in 1822, went to Paris, where he found he was teacher and applied the methods of Pestalozzi in his own school, education institution he founded in Paris. He wrote books, 1823, so you see he was only 20 years old. He wrote a book about arithmetics according to Pestalozzi's principles, and he was director of his own school in 1825, so he was only 21 years old. And he got very known in this education field in France until 1845, 1850, where after a kind of an invasion which occurred not so far away from here, in Hydesville, US, you had this Fox family house where there were some raps and so on, and that got big diffusion through the press worldwide, and gave in France this practice. The people practiced what we call the turning or dancing table. At that time there was no TV, there was not a lot of other distractions, and the people sit around the table and made this type of phenomenon. So Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail was once invited to assist to such a meeting, and that is where he saw really the table moving. I mean, I don't know if you have already seen a table moving. Well, we don't need that normally as spiritists to believe in it. I had the chance much longer, quite some time after having reading his books, to see it, and I can guarantee you the table are really moving and nobody is pushing or lifting, there is no cords or whatever. So Kardec saw that phenomenon, and with his sense of observation, he was educated Pestalozzi and educated the other, he saw immediately that there was no known reason to make this table move. And this made him start the serious studies about this phenomenon, which was not only material, but also there was some trace, some signs of an intelligence behind the phenomenon, because the people asked questions and the table was answering. A very primitive way. One tap is yes, 2 is no, and then letters. 1 is A, 2 is B, and 23, boom, 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 is Z. So you imagine. But at the end, they got out of that some answers, totally surprising, and which showed the sign of intelligence. And Allan Kardec told at that moment, this is an intelligent effect, which must have an intelligent cause. And from that point, which was in 1855, he decided to start studying very seriously this phenomenon. 1854. Okay. And only 3 years later, you see, 1857, he already published the first book, first edition of the Spirit's book, which at that time had only 512 questions and answers. You know that the definitive version you have today has 1,019 questions and answers. And in his book, he really gathered the principles of the Spiritist doctrine on the immortality of the souls, nature of spirits, relation with man, moral law, present life, future life, destiny of human race, according to the teaching of the Spirit of high degree, transmitted through various mediums. So when he started the studies, he got several books of notes of several groups which were making questions and answers and writing everything in books. So several groups, several mediums, several spirits, of course. And his work in this book was to compile all this, to organize it in a logical and sequential, progressive way. Again, the work of the teacher. He was really, he had the best skills to do that. And what's also important is that the book, it's written Spirit's book. So the answers have been given by the spirits and have been written as such. So it's very important that because this book is not containing Allan Kardec's own opinion about the things, about the questions. It's containing what the spirits have given as answers. That is why it's called the Spirit's book. It's not the Kardec's book. It's not a book with his own ideas. And this is already something which differentiates a little bit Spiritism from some other religions, where generally you have one person which is elevated, certainly, in most of the cases, but the books are only reflecting their own opinion. And in the Spiritism and Kardec's book, it's absolutely not the case. He just transcribed the answers of the spirits. Alors I will not go through it in detail, but you have the content of the Spirit's book. So the introduction is also, only the introduction of the Spirit's book is something absolutely important, because there Kardec is really explaining how it came, how it has been prepared, how it was in the context of that time, what is the difference, why did he invent new words like Spiritism is a word invented by Kardec. It existed already in American, in English, before. But in France, the first one who used the word Spiritism was Allan Kardec. And he explained why he used Spiritism and not spiritualism, for instance. And the reason is very simple. Every Spiritist is spiritualist, but every spiritualist is not Spiritist. So you feel immediately that the word has a different meaning. And since he wanted to be very, very clear in his book, he used, he invented this new word in order to be very precise. Okay? So you see, first part is first causes, origin of God, origin of the universe, etc. Then spirit world or world of spirits. How are the spirits? What do they do? How do they move? They reincarnate. Why do they reincarnate? What are they doing? This is in part 2 of the book. Then you have the part 3, it's about the moral laws. So you see here the list of the moral law. law of freedom that we have talked about a little bit at the beginning, which I think is very important for North American country. When you go to New York, the Statue of Liberty is the first thing you see. And a lot of the immigrants in US and even in Canada, they came to escape from regimes in Europe or wherever in the world where there was no this liberty. So the liberty is really a very fundamental value you have in this country. And I really encourage you to communicate about it because it will talk to the people. And it's a fundamental principle of the Spiritist teachings. And you have in the Spirit books already talking about that. And then you have, of course, all the others. You see labor, reproduction, preservation. And the fourth part of the book is about hopes and consolations. Why do we suffer on the earth? What will we get tomorrow? And so on. Future joys and sorrows, etc. So it's really the book with the ABC about the teachings. If somebody is coming to you and tell, okay, what is Spiritist? What should I read first? Do not hesitate. Tell them, okay, Spiritist book. And that's why we are at the International Spiritist Council acting as far as we can. In French, it's already public, so you can download it for free on 100 of different places in internet. And we are also now in Europe printing the book in French for very, very low cost in order really to encourage its dissemination because it's really the beginning of the beginning, the ABC. Then in 1861 he wrote a second book, which is the Medium's book, which is containing the special teaching of the spirits concerning the theory of all the type of manifestation, means communicating, different type of medium, how to develop or to educate the mediumship, the difficulties and pitfalls. Sorry, I think there is some pitfalls, the dangers of the mediumship. And this was already according to his experience at that time, which was already 5 years. It's more the practical and experimental way. So first you have the theory in the Spirit's book, and second he made this book which is giving the practical way to communicate. And again in this book you see there are several parts. Part 1 is about the basis, are there spirits? Methodology, for instance, is very interesting to read because there, amongst others, Kardec is telling, before you want to turn somebody spiritist, you have first to turn this person spiritualist. Because if the person does not believe that she has in herself something else than just a physical body and matter, how will this person believe that the spirits exist and that they can communicate with us? You see? And he's really, again here, with his experience of teaching, you have to start stepwise from the beginning, one step after the other, and it's very well explained in this first part of the Medium's book. And then you see part 2 is going into more details about the spirit phenomenon or manifestations, and that he is classifying then in these different chapters. You see there are quite a lot. You see the different type of mediumship, typology, psychography, different type of mediums, how to develop the mediums, and then again the chapter 18 about the dangers of the mediumship. A lot of people come, probably here as well, to your group and ask, okay, I want to see phenomenon, how can I practice that at home and so on. And the best answer you can and you even shall give them is to tell, hey, first look to the theory and only then in the second step go to the practice, because there are dangers which are explained there, the biggest one being obsession. And the spirits which take control of the medium, which are have the sensibility, they feel the spirits, but they do not have the mean to distinguish the good one from the evil one. And they do not know what to do if there is a bad spirit coming in order to make him go away. And it's like your child. You do not take your child and give him a car through the streets before he has studied the meaning of the signs and the rules, isn't it? So it's exactly the same. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they read the Spirit's book, dangerous, okay, I will leave that for next time, and then they start practicing, and they feel it in the consequences when it got out of control. Okay. So continuing, you see how to analyze the messages. How can we identify the spirit who communicates? You get a communication, it's signed, I don't know, Léon Denis or even Jesus sometimes. Okay, is it really Jesus or Léon Denis or not? How do you recognize if it is not? You cannot see him generally. So here you clearly see how you shall proceed, and be very, very careful in this type of things. And absolutely do not accept anything in case of doubt. Better to throw away 10 good Spiritist communication than to accept one which is not good. And the spirits themselves have told that to Kardec and are instructing us to proceed in this way. Voilà. So the next one is the Gospel according to Spiritism. And this one is containing the explanation of the moral maxim of Christ or Jesus in accordance with Spiritism and their application in various circumstances in life. So this book is developing the philosophical and ethical consequences. Okay, the spirits, they exist. And now, what do we do? Where do they come from? Where do they go to? All these philosophical questions are coming. And then, how are they in the spirit world depending on what they have done on earth? What is good and evil and so on. And when Kardec started investigating these things, he saw that there is a very big concordance with what Jesus told us already 2,000 years ago. Here I would like to mention, he wrote the Gospel according to Spiritism, but we should have, or we should write also the Quran according to Spiritism, or Veda according to Spiritism, or etc. Because all these basic principles of moral and ethics that Jesus brought are common to most of the religions around the world. The differences between the religions, as I told yesterday, are on the things that have been brought in by the humans themselves. This is, so on the cover sheet of the book he wrote that unshakable faith is only that which can meet reason face to face in every human epoch. And with this he was clearly stating, okay, the faith in the conventional religions is based on dogmas. The conventional religion has a dogmatic approach. It's like that. A dogma is something that you have to believe even if you don't understand. And Kardec really make a break in the Spiritist teaching from that and take, okay, believe only once you understood. So he initiated the change from a blind faith, which was necessary during centuries and is still necessary today for the people who do not want or who have not the means to analyze by themselves and who needs that we tell them what they have to believe, to this new approach for the people who wants to understand before they believe in something. So from blind faith to reasoned faith. And the blind faith is today, as I told, still necessary, but still presents some risks of turning into fanatism or integrism, that you can see the consequences in the world, in particular these last years. So again, the content, very quickly. So you see basically each chapter is based on one of the main teachings of Jesus, and then you have for each of them the explanation of Kardec and some messages he got from spirits who were explaining, okay, Jesus, by telling this is exactly what he meant, this is exactly what he wanted to say. And I'm really, the first time I read this book, I did not understand it. I was not ready. Because I'm a little bit German thinking, and the Germans, before to talk to their heart, you have to talk to their brain. And I was not ready yet. But today, I must tell that I have been educated Catholic, but it's only now that I understand who was Jesus and what is in the gospel and what did Jesus mean in the gospels. And it's really something, I mean, I was educated Catholic, but I turned Christian only after reading this book, because it allowed me to understand. And a lot of people are told me that as well. I was in Finland, a Finnish lady told me exactly the same. Now I understand who was Jesus and so on. And in Portugal, in Brazil, there is even a campaign telling, read Kardec in order to understand Jesus. You see, continuing. You recognize probably most of Jesus' messages in the gospel. And the last chapter is interesting because you have a collection of Spiritist prayers, which is very useful in the work of the groups and even at home or personally when you have a problem. A lot of people, I mean, you are encouraging here as well to just practice the gospel at home. And the best book to do it is, of course, there are a lot of very good books from Chico and so on, but take the gospel, concentrate, open it, and read, and you will see that something is coming which is answering to one of your very, very, very actual questions. Now I want to open a little bit of parenthesis on this to change, make a little bit some diversity. He started to write this book in 1863, secretly. And he received a mediumistic communication from another medium who didn't know that he was writing this book, and where the spirits was giving me a clear message about the book he was writing secretly. So it was the first sign already. And he told, okay, the religious world will find in it the maxims they need, and the practical life of nations will get excellent instruction out of it. Then he went to Saint-Adresse in September 1863. So Saint-Adresse, for those who don't know, is a city which is just next to Le Havre. Le Havre is where the Seine River goes to the channel, the North Sea, okay? And there were some cliffs, and where he rented a place, retired, he was alone, and that's where he was writing the book. And in the posthumous work I mentioned yesterday, you have also some communication he received from Paris during that period, and that Amélie, his wife, was sending him by mail. And the first communication was the one you see in italics. I want to talk you from Paris. And the spirit was clearly telling his isolation was very favorable to the spirit influences, inspiration. Kardec was not medium, but he was inspired by the spirits. So he wrote through his own intelligence, but they helped him a lot, and much more than what he thought. That is what is written in this communication he got when he was there. And insisting, understand why we needed to have you under control, free from any other occupation, because in 1863 he received already hundreds of letters every day and so on, and it was he was quite busy in Paris, and there he was really isolated, alone, and so on. So this is what you can find in the posthumous work, because that Pierre Gaëtan Lemery published from the notes he left after he died. But we found, as you can see, some letters that Allan Kardec wrote to his wife, Amélie, whilst he was in Saint-Adresse. So this is new, because, we found it 2 or 3 years ago, and now we started transcribing, translating. It was already published in Brazil and so on. And it's very interesting because it brings much more details about his stay there. And sorry. So you see, Saint-Adresse, my dear Amélie, just want to tell you that I'm good health, even better than at the beginning of my stay. So he's somehow writing that he has some problems, some how to say it, was probably already his heart weakening because he could not go upstairs without without breath, and he had really some difficulties. And at that time, some methods to help in this was, okay, go to somewhere on the shore, you get the ionized air from the sea and so on. And that was the means that they used in order to get better from this type of problems. So he went there basically because of some physical problem he had. And you see how it was organized by the spiritual world. This isolation was also favorable for writing the gospel. Huh? So there was huge storm, of course. Huh? That region is a little bit windy and rainy, in particular in autumn. Huh? You see, here he tells he was living in a cabin. Is cabin the right word? Cabin, right? Close to the shore. And he's describing, you see, the shakes and so on. And then I was looking, okay, I have to find a way to illustrate this. So I was looking in internet, postcards, old stuff and so on from Saint Adresse, and it was always 20 or 30 years after, very different and so on. And then also, probably by inspiration, I found out that the author of these paints, which is Claude Monet, lived in Saint Adresse at the same time as Kardec was there, between 1860 and 1870 more or less. And he has painted paysages, landscapes from that area, and you see he's painted a cabin close to the shore, etc. Well, I don't tell it's a cabin Kardec was, but you can you can feel back how it was at that time, and you see it's the Seine River is very nearby, so you had already a lot of ships and so on around, and fishing and sailing and so on. Here you see another view, another paint of Claude Monet showing these cabins on the shore. And it was really something very attracting because we could feel the situation he was when he wrote his book. So then he continues in the letter. Last Sunday I made a tour up to the lighthouse, Farol. Under a short rain and then good weather. I had lunch to the restaurant. It was a wonderful sight, somewhat different. So he was already wandering and raising the cliff. So his difficulty he had was disappeared. Huh? And then when you look Claude Monet, you see the restaurant on the shore in Saint Adresse. Huh?
Very good.
Isn't it? And there you see the cliff with the lighthouse, and the fishers and the ones, the oysters and whatever. So this is just a small parenthesis to make you feel a little bit these things, and also encourage you to make some researches, you see, because it took me, it was Christmas. In France it was very, very bad weather. Nobody wanted to go out. A little bit like the winter you had here this year. And then through internet it was working, just looking, and all these things I managed to gather in only a couple of days researches through internet without even leaving my home. So it's quite interesting nowadays we find a lot of things. So I'm coming to the fourth book he wrote, Heaven and Hell, or Divine Justice According to Spiritism. It was 1865, means this year it's 150 years old. So there are a lot of commemoration in several Spiritist groups around the world to commemorate these 150 years. So the first part of it is a comparative examination of doctrines concerning the passage from corporeal life to spirit life, future punishment, rewards, angels, demons, does David exist, yes or no? How are angels created? Are they created like us, or are they separated? Is the devil really an angel that has failed? Whatever. He's really making all these traditional Christian or Catholic teachings, really putting them in order, in giving the right, understandable explanations. And then it's followed by several examples regarding the true situation of the soul during and after death. So here you see the first part, where you see heaven, hell, purgatory, angels, demons. He's explaining really those notions because he has also been educated Catholic at that time in Bourg-en-Bresse. And the part 2 is, in my opinion, it's not very well known, but it's absolutely important because he has a collection of communication of spirits who are describing what happened with them after passing away, and depending, comparing it with what they have done whilst they were living. And this is a kind of experimental treaty which is giving proof of, let's say, it sustains the moral laws, because it's by example. The spirits themselves are telling what happened with them in good or in bad, depending on what they have done good or bad during the life. So it's something which is very, very strong and very, very important to read. It's unfortunately not so known. This is why we have to talk about it and to divulgate it and to encourage you to read it more in detail, because I can tell you it helps us a lot in our own behaviors. I will only talk of, let's say, for instance, the suicide. Suicide is really something, it's the wrong door to quit the life, because all the communication he received from suicide, you will see it's really very, very painful for the spirit. Whatever was the situation and the cause and the problems during the life, who is taking somebody to commit suicide, to go to this extreme, after the suicide, it's even worse. And this is a very strong message also we have to convey in our, I think in Canada or in Europe, it's even more, there is more suicide. And I can tell you, after you have read that, you will think 10 times before thinking to commit suicide when you have a problem. And then also to help the people, okay, what can we do? I have some known people who committed suicide, but then you have to really to help the spirit and pray a lot for him in order to try to diminish these difficulties he's feeling after having done this, after passing through this wrong door. And all these things you can find here. Of course, there are a lot of complementary information in more modern book, in particular from Divaldo, from Chico Xavier, or even Ibon Pereira, which has a very good book on this same subject, confirming all what Kardec told. So in France, sometimes you will find there is an author telling, okay, my son committed suicide, but he's very well, and only after 2 months he's giving me a very nice communication. So when we analyze this as spiritists, that cannot be. And it's even dangerous to do such books, because if the people think, you get the inverse message, the opposite message. If the people think, okay, I commit suicide, then I'm well, you are inducing people to commit it. So we should not, never, it's a mistake to disseminate this type of things, because all what we get from Spiritist teaching is really the opposite. And then we go to the last book, which is the Genesis, Miracle and Prediction According to Spiritism. Development of several items of the theory. So you see chapter 1, part 1. So chapter 1, which is Character of Spiritist Revelation, I also encourage you to read it. But don't read it if you didn't read the other books before. Because the Genesis is really containing what I call in French la quintessence. How do you tell that in English? A quintessencia?
The essence, right?
It's the deepest thoughts of Kardec, because he wrote it 2 years before dying. And there is where you have his thoughts in the most detailed and developed manner. And you see really in the biggest possible depths what he was thinking. Genesis is really extraordinary for that, and this Character of the Spiritist Revelation, I read it 10 times already, but each time I read it again, I discover new things in it. It's really incredible. So the depth of this text is really incredible. And then he wrote, you see, uranography, general uranography, and about geological sketch of the Earth. This he wrote in collaboration with Camille Flammarion at that time. So Camille Flammarion was participating to Kardec's group. He had already the knowledge about this. He got some messages from the spirit of Galileo that you can find in this book. And what's important to say is the theory that they concluded to be the most probable is the one that is admitted today. And at that time, there were a lot of theories about the formation of the Earth, of the Moon, and so on. And it was quite advanced from that point of view. Then he's talking about the miracles. So miracle does not exist. It would be, as such, a derogation to the natural law. And this does not exist. Because the natural law are perfect. They don't need any derogation. It would be, let's say, a mistake to think that would be possible. God does not need miracle. The natural law are done in such that the miracle are totally useless. And then he is explaining miracle in the gospel, so all the things which have been considered as being miracles, giving a spiritist explanation of how this phenomenon worked according to the current knowledge of the law of nature, including not only the material, but also the spiritual world. And then the predictions. So here he's explaining how the spirits can sometimes see things that will happen or may happen in the future, and why this is always very, very uncertain, and should sometimes is forbidden to be told to the spirits by us. So if you go to a medium paying to try to know what will happen with you tomorrow, you are just wasting your money, because it will be 99.999%. I mean, I don't want to say false, because when you make a direct question, you have two answers, yes or no. So whatever the answer the medium will give you, you have 50% probability that it is true, isn't it? So you see, but it's fake, it's cheating somehow, most of the case. So you have to be very, very careful with that. So, oops. So sorry, it should be conclusion, not introduction. So to finish, yeah, introduction to the conclusion. So Spiritism, this big change brought by Kardec is really that. Believe first, rather than telling believe first and you will understand later if you can. Spiritism tells understand first and you will believe later if you want. So the free will as a basic principle, and the reasoned faith, which is this new concept introduced by Kardec, to move out from the blind faith to this reasoned faith. Essential goal of Spiritism is improvement of the human being. There is no other objective, isn't it? Spiritism and his conclusions and consequences. We are immortal, death does not exist. So I'm dying, everything is finished, so I really take opportunity as long as I'm living to make maximum profit, this, that, and so on. No, that's the wrong way to live. Suicide does not resolve the problems. Family members, friends who we treat as dead still live and support us. The purpose of our life is continuous development and evolution. Being a good person, practice of charity is the key for our own happiness. As I told yesterday, in the spiritual world, the more we give, the richer we are. And we are fully responsible from our life. Our happiness is in our own hands. We cannot change the past, but in the present, we can today decide what we will do in the future. And this is the opportunity we have to take in order to evolve for our own evolution. Forget the past. Do not take culpability. Take the experience out of it, but decide today where you want to go to really in your own life. As you can see on this picture. Voilà, so that's I want to thank you for your attention and for your time. Maybe we have still 2 or 3 minutes for an eventual question. And once more, thanks a lot to you, to all, and to the Toronto Spiritist Society for this opportunity. It was really a pleasure and an honor to be here today with you. Thanks a lot.
So Charles and Jean-Paul have to leave in a few minutes to go onto their flight back home, but we do have a couple of questions if you like.
There's one question from Nadia here on the internet. She asks, what was the first language to receive Allan Kardec's works in terms of translation? After the original French, obviously.
Alors, the Spirit's book today we have, the original is in French, of course. So, as I told you, this is now public. Kardec died more than 70 years ago, and according to the European law, it's public. There is, so you can find it wherever in French, a lot of places for free download, including in the Encyclopédie Spirit. It's spiritism.net. Which is done by the French-speaking Spiritism movement, and we are putting all these books, Kardec, Denis, Delan, Flammarion, and so on, which are already in public domain, available to everybody in the world. We have already 17 translations, but we are missing something like 183 more to complete the translation in all the languages which are existing in the world. But I must say that the translation in Portuguese are excellent. Very well done. In English as well, I think we reached now a very high level of quality. Perfection is only God, unfortunately, but it's a very high quality, and we have also now very good quality in Finnish, in German, in Spanish, and some other languages. And our work as International Spiritist Council is to complete all this translation in other languages, including Arabic, Chinese, and so on.
Was the English version the first translated in the UK? The Spirit's book?
I don't know. Anna Blackwell made the first translation. She knew Kardec. She met with him, so it must have been already in the 1860s or 1870s. These first translations were done in English and also in German. But those translations, the English and the German language, evolved a lot in the interval, so that's why we needed to renew and to redo this translation into the modern language. Whilst the French language, thanks to Napoleon, has been quite stable over the period. We have some words which changed or widened a little bit their meaning in the interval, but it's only a few of them, so most of it you can just take it as it is today.
Any more?
Yes?
One more question? No one?
Well, thank you very much, Charles.
Thank you.
It's a great honor to have you here, and I hope to get you back here soon. We're going to call the kids in now for our passing, and just let's settle down.